Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Ada Trung, and I am a grant specialist here at the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. Today's webinar will be an overview of the fiscal year-end 2022 charge program. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted online to the Charge program website. The slides are also available in the chat box. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please use the Q&A function. This is an overview of what will be covered today, and hopefully this webinar will help you better understand the requirements for the 2022 Charge program. This presentation will last approximately 30 minutes, and there will be a 30-minute question and answer session afterwards. Again, if you have questions, please use the Q&A function. My colleague, Danny Fung, is helping to facilitate the webinar, and our program supervisor, Tin Lee, is also on the line and may chime in later during the Q&A portion. First, I will provide some background information on the Air District, as well as review the changes to the 2022 Charge program. Afterwards, I will go over how to apply to the program using Flux, which is our online grants management system. Here is a little background on who we are. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District, or Air District, is the agency that is responsible for regulating stationary sources of air pollution in the region and protecting and improving public health, air quality, and the global climate. The Air District was established in 1955, and it is the first regional air pollution control agency in the country and currently serves over 7 million residents located throughout the 9 Bay Area counties. The Technology Implementation Office catalyzes innovation to combat climate change by providing financial incentives to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from mobile and stationary sources. The Technology Implementation Office currently has 2 grant programs. The Charge program, which helps offset the cost of purchasing and installing chargers for passenger electric vehicles. Another program is Clean Cars for All, which provides funding for income-qualified Bay Area residents to replace their older cars with near zero or zero emissions vehicles, electric bicycles, or a prepaid public transit. Since 2016, the Charge program has provided funding for publicly accessible passenger EV charging stations across the Bay Area. To date, the Charge program has provided approximately $20 million in funding to install over 3,000 charging ports locally. And the goal of the program is to increase the number of EV charging stations to accommodate future growth in the EV market and achieve ambitious Bay Area and California EV adoption goals. The Air District has clean air grant programs to support communities most impacted by air pollution. The Charge program now has additional funding for chargers located at multi-unit dwellings in environmental justice communities. The 2022 Charge program is now open. The program opened last week on December 7th, and we encourage you all to apply. There is a total of $7 million in funding for the 2022 Charge cycle. And as I mentioned previously, the Air District is prioritizing projects located in environmental justice communities. So a minimum of 60% of the total available funding will be awarded to projects located in disadvantaged communities, low-income communities, and half-mile buffer areas as defined by CalEnviroScreen 3.0. We ask that you submit questions via email, and we will post the answers to our website for everyone to access. The deadline to submit questions is on February 15, 2022, which is 2 weeks before the solicitation closes. Please submit applications before 5:00 p.m. Pacific time on March 1st, 2022. Here are some resources for the 2022 Charge program, and everything can be found on our website, including the application link, final program guidance, and an application user guide and other resources. In mid-October, we released a draft copy of the 2022 Charge program guidance, and we requested public comments. And thank you to everyone who submitted feedback on our draft guidance. We have made changes based on some of the feedback we received, so please review the final guidance when you have the opportunity. And now moving on to project eligibility. For the Charge program, businesses, nonprofits, and public agencies are eligible to apply. Homeowner associations are also eligible to apply, but individual residents are not eligible. All projects must be surplus and voluntary, meaning the project cannot be required to satisfy a rule, regulation, or an existing contractual obligation. So if your project is subject to EV readiness codes, it is not eligible for funding except for the components that go above and beyond the requirement. You cannot start any work on your project until you have an executed contract with the Air District. This is extremely important because if any equipment is purchased or if work begins prior to receiving an executed contract, it will lead to your grant being canceled. Applicants must be in good standing with the Air District's rules and regulations, and the maximum grant award is $3 million per applicant. Applicants applying for funding must meet a minimum 15% cost share requirement, meaning that the applicant or site operator must contribute at least 15% of the total project cost using their own financial resources. Here is an overview of the eligible and ineligible costs. There is more in-depth information in the program guidance. For the Charge program, awarded grants can cover the costs of the chargers, installation and labor, as well as hardware to monitor usage. And the grants cannot cover consultant fees, environmental review, or anything related to general maintenance, repairs, or subscription fees. Here are the eligible facility types. The proposed chargers must be installed at workplaces, destinations, transit parking locations, transportation corridors, or multi-unit dwelling facilities. Transportation corridors are only applicable to DC fast charger projects and must be paired with a new or existing level 2 charger within 1 mile driving distance. Multi-unit dwellings can install chargers at sites that are very close to several other multi-unit dwelling buildings. However, you'll need to obtain the proper authorizations and permits to do so if it's located in the public right-of-way. Additionally, chargers installed at multi-unit dwellings must be accessible to the general community and cannot be installed in a parking space dedicated to a single user. However, the Air District may allow deeded or assigned parking spaces for affordable housing, multi-unit dwellings, or below market rate units located within a disadvantaged community. This is an overview of the 2022 Charge program. This year's program is also competitive, and applications will be scored and ranked according to the evaluation criteria in the program guidance. As I mentioned earlier, we will be prioritizing applications that include projects at multi-unit dwellings, environmental justice communities, and in regions with lower EV charger density. For the chargers, the base usage requirements are now lower than the 2021 cycle, with the addition of multi-port DC fast charger eligibility added. And for multi-unit dwelling projects, we've added separate usage requirements for the plus-ups. Note that for multi-unit dwellings, they are eligible to stack charge program funds with other incentive programs, such as Cal EVIP or grants from your local community choice aggregation. Government-sponsored projects, as well as projects exclusively at multi-unit dwellings, must qualify for a minimum of $10,000 in funding, while all other entities must qualify for a minimum of $1 million. This is the minimum funding your project must qualify for. The qualifying grant awards are based on the charger types and funding levels in the program guidance. And lastly, we will be accepting applications through our online grants management system that was developed earlier this year. A link to the online application is posted on the program website. There are a few new requirements for the 2022 Charge program. If using the chargers requires payment, the equipment models must be able to accept some form of credit card payment and accept more than one form of payment. The equipment doesn't need to have a card reader installed, but must accept payment in another way, such as a mobile app or toll-free number. Another new requirement is the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Training Program, or EVITP. Charge-funded projects must be compliant with EVITP requirements, and all EV chargers and equipment need to be installed by a licensed contractor and at least one electrician that holds a valid EVITP certification. For projects that are installing charging ports that supply 25 kilowatts or more, at least 25% of the electricians working must have a EVITP certification. Moving on to charger requirements. The proposed chargers must meet the minimum requirements shown on this slide. Level 1 and Level 2 chargers must be equipped with a J1772 connector, and DC fast chargers must be equipped with CHAdeMO or SAE combo connectors. There are minimum output ratings, and all chargers must be installed in the Air District's jurisdiction, and there is an interactive map link provided in the program guidance for your reference. All chargers must be publicly accessible with the exception of projects at multi-unit dwellings or to support private fleets. If your project's proposed chargers are meant for private use, you must include an inventory of existing EVs that will utilize the chargers, as well as a projection of future EV adoption. All chargers should be UL certified, stationary, and grid connected. Here you'll see the charger types, usage requirements, and funding levels. This is our general funding table. The base funding levels remain the same as the 2021 cycle. For the current 2022 cycle, we have included a multi-port plus-up option for DC fast chargers. And most project types now have a reduced base usage requirement. I also want to highlight the bottom portion of this table that shows our plus-up funding options, which includes dual-port chargers, solar power, DC fast chargers at transportation corridors, and chargers at multi-unit dwellings. The funding structure and the plus-ups have changed this year, so please review the tables in the guidance carefully. And now I'll go over the funding levels for multi-unit dwellings in AB 617 communities. This funding table applies to multi-unit dwelling projects that need more flexibility with charger usage requirements. Approximately $2 million of the total $7 million in funding is available for these projects. A level 1 charger qualifies for up to $1,500. A level 2 charger can qualify for up to $8,000, and a DC fast charger can qualify for up to $30,000. There are no usage requirements for multi-unit dwellings in AB 617 communities, and the usage level is determined by the applicant and is based on their anticipated use. And as I mentioned earlier, multi-unit dwellings are eligible to stack charge program funds with other incentive programs, such as Cal EVIP or grants from your local community choice aggregation. Here you can see the evaluation criteria for the 2022 charge program. There are 7 categories with varying point values. I also want to note that these are not requirements, but a list of criteria that we will use to score your application. For example, if you are not a minority business enterprise, you can still apply for funding, but you may receive a lower score for that component under the qualifications category. This table can be found in the program guidance, which has been published to the website. This is an overview of the charge program application process, which includes phases for when you'll apply, install, and operate the chargers. I will review each phase in further detail in the next 3 slides. During the apply phase, you'll submit the online application before March 1st, 2022. This slide provides an overview of the required application documents, and before starting an application, please review the program guidance for a complete list of required documents. And as I mentioned previously, you cannot start any work on your project until you have an executed contract with the Air District. We will review, score, and rank all the applications, then notify applicants to let them know if their project will move forward with grant funding, We'll also bring all eligible projects to our board of directors for consideration. And once the charge projects have been approved by our board of directors, we'll work with the applicants to execute contracts based on their rank and funding availability. Afterwards, we will issue a notice to proceed to the approved applicants, which allows them to officially start work on their projects. Please remember that we have $7 million in funding for the 2022 cycle and that this is a competitive grant program. Unfortunately, we cannot provide funding to everyone that applies. This is an overview of the installation and reimbursement phase of the grant process for those that have executed contracts. For applicants that move forward with funding and have a fully executed contract and notice to proceed, they'll be able to purchase chargers, execute agreements with contractors, and install the approved chargers listed in the contract. Applicants will also need to maintain insurance and provide proof of EV/ITP certification. For larger projects, if there are some facilities that have completed installation and the chargers are operational, you may be able to request partial reimbursement at the Air District's discretion. Once the chargers are installed, you can request reimbursement, and to request the first reimbursement, which is 85% of the approved grant award, you will need to submit the following supporting documents: proof of payment and deposit, such as copies of canceled checks or bank statements, invoices, photos of all equipment installed with the Air District stickers, which we will provide, and proof that the charger information has been submitted to the Department of Energy's Alternative Field Database. Please reference the program guidance for more information on the reimbursement process. And during the final phase, you'll be operating the chargers for a minimum of 3 years until the usage requirement is met. Once you have reached the completion of the project term and usage requirement, you can request the final reimbursement, which is the remaining 15% of the grant award. If you have difficulty meeting the usage requirements listed in the contract, we will work with you to figure out the best path forward. And in most cases, we allow extensions so that you have more time to operate the chargers and hopefully meet the usage requirement. And if for some reason you still can't meet the usage requirements with extensions, or you're unable to continue the project, we will have to ask you to repay a portion of the grant award, and the repayment conditions are listed in the contract as well. For example, if you could only meet 50% of the required usage in the contract, you will only be entitled to 50% of the grant award. And in some cases, that means you may need to return funds to the Air District. During this operational phase, you may also be involved in audit and inspection processes. This is an overview of the charge solicitation period and milestones. We are aiming to review all applications after the solicitation deadline of March 1st, 2022, followed by board approval and contracting through summer of 2022. And because we've transitioned the charge program to encourage larger projects that are awarded over $1 million in funding, we recognize it may be difficult for applicants to find site hosts. In order to help, we have posted an interested partners list on our website. So for those of you that are interested in being listed on the interested partners list, please email us your organization name, contact information, and description of the project. We are not looking for installers or equipment vendors. This list is intended for site hosts to identify potential applicants and aggregate locations together, and we'll continue to update the list throughout the solicitation. While there will be a Q&A session at the end of this presentation, we are also accepting written questions until February 15, 2022. Since this is a competitive solicitation, we will be accepting written questions and will post the questions and answers online for everyone to access. We will be responding to questions and continue to post updates bi-weekly until March 1st, 2022. If you are an individual or community group that is specifically working on an application for a multi-unit dwelling project in environmental justice communities, you are welcome to reach out to us to schedule meetings for additional assistance. And we will only be accepting meeting requests for these specific projects throughout the application period. We highly encourage you to review the program website and guidance before applying. If you have questions, please email us and include charge program questions in the subject line. Moving on, I'll now go over how to apply to the charge program. We've transitioned the charge program to a new grants management system called Flux, which includes a grantee portal. The application is now open and you can access the application and user guide through the charge program website. When navigating to the website, you'll be prompted to create a Flux account using the link on the bottom right-hand side. If you are an existing user from the previous cycle, you can log into your account. For first-time applicants, you'll need to fill in your information and create a username and password. This process is similar to creating accounts for other online services. Once you've created your account or have logged into an existing account, you will arrive at your dashboard. On the left, you will be able to navigate to various components such as applications, reports, and payments. To apply, click on the Charge Program button, and you'll notice that there is also a button to apply to the Clean Cars for All program, so please double check to make sure you're clicking on the correct button. To add facilities and charger types to your application, you'll want to click on the plus icon. On the right side of the slide, labeled number 3, you'll notice the expanded view to add a charger type. And also, please remember to click the Save button after you enter in information. For each facility, you'll need to upload the required documents such as proof of property ownership, maps, and quotes. Please reference the guidance for a list of attachments. And lastly, you can reach out to us if you're having technical difficulties with the application. And this concludes the presentation. If you haven't already submitted your questions using the Q&A function, please do so now. We'll take a quick moment to review the questions, and return in a few minutes and answer questions until 11 o'clock. If we do not get to your questions today, we will be responding to each one and publishing the response to the website. So one question that we received is, are the applications first come, first serve, or are you scoring all applications after the application closes? So this is a competitive solicitation. The application period goes until March 1st, 2022. We will not be scoring and reviewing applications until after that deadline. So we're waiting for the solicitation to close before we score and rank projects. Another question we received is, will larger projects over $1 million get priority over smaller ones? No, it's not to say that smaller projects or larger projects would get priority over another. It's just only projects exclusively at multi-unit dwellings or government-sponsored projects need to qualify for at least $10,000 in funding, while all other project types need to qualify for over $1 million. So we will score and rank the projects based on the evaluation criteria listed in the guidance, but it's not indicative. It's not necessarily true to say that one project will get priority over another purely based on the amount that they qualify for.
Hi, everyone. The next question we have is the list of eligible project costs includes hardware, but not any software. Are software costs as a required function of the charging included in the grant cost or not? Software costs are not an eligible cost. The next question we have is, can a non-affordable housing multi-unit building with deeded parking apply if a charger will be accessible to all parking spaces, i.e. 14 chargers would reach 48 spaces? If it's not an affordable housing unit, then deeded parking spaces are not eligible. If there were guest parking spots that were open to everyone, then that type of parking would be eligible. The next question is, hi, my business entity type is a sole proprietorship. Is my business eligible to apply? The answer is yes, but just keep in mind there's a $1 million requirement unless this is a MUD project where there's a $10,000 minimum. The next question we have is, in regards to the minimum funding, all the projects, do they have to equal $1 to $2 million? This could be multiple projects, correct? You'll be choosing up to a max of 7 rebate recipients. So the number of recipients that we select is going to vary because we do allow smaller projects, the government and MUD projects, to be at $10,000 minimum. So for example, last year we had over 20 applications, and I believe 16 applications were selected. So it's going to vary depending on size and scope. The next question is, wanted to confirm CalEnviroScreen 3.0 as 4.0 became available as October 2021. And the answer is yes, we are using CalEnviroScreen 3.0 and not 4.0. We may look at using 4.0 in future solicitations. The next question is, if we have permission to apply for this program from site hosts, would we create an account with their info or ours? The answer to this is really dependent on who the project sponsor is going to be. If the site hosts are the applicant and they're going to be the ones that sign the contracts, then you would create the account with their information and not yours. The next question is, if we place charging stations at a school bus yard, would that qualify? The answer is no. The intent of the charge program is to serve light duty vehicles, specifically vehicles that have a gross vehicle weight rating of 8,500 pounds or lighter. If the chargers are being used to support those vehicles, then you can apply for that. The next question is it only the MUD project that can stack other rebates? Can other types of projects stack rebates? The answer is no, only MUD projects are eligible to stack funding. The next question is, you mentioned hardware necessary for monitoring use of the EVSC is covered in the grant. Can you give an example of what hardware in this case means? So hardware is anything that is equipment related. So if it's the charger itself and there's hardware in there that allows tracking of the usage, and then that's covered. It's basically just all equipment costs. The next question is, how can MUD property owners and managers find EVSC service providers? We have an interested parties list, so please reach out and submit your information to Danny Fung at dfung@BAAQMD.gov, and we will try to help coordinate and link property owners with vendors. The next question is, what reporting is needed throughout the 3 to 4 years the chargers are operational, just the kilowatt hours dispensed? So in the reporting requirements, we do ask for usage. We do ask about uptime for the chargers. We ask, if there are any issues with the chargers, if there needs to be any repairs or maintenance that happens, things like that. We can also follow up with some direct language. You can also check the sample contract that's on our website. The sample contract, there's a section there that shows the actual reporting requirements, so you can take a look at that and see the specific details for that. The next question is, can EV funding be used towards the purchase of utility trucks or just administrative type vehicles? Charge funding does not pay for the purchase of any vehicles. This is for only the charging equipment. The next question is no usage requirements for multi-unit dwellings clarification. In our multi-unit low-income dwelling, we have just a couple of plug-in hybrids now, but we want to put chargers in anticipation of converting to mostly EVs. We are planning for the future. Would we receive 100% of our funding after installation is complete without the 3 years usage report? And are we restricted in the number of charging stations that we apply for? So you are not restricted in the number of charging stations that you apply for. Again, you have to meet the minimum $10,000 requirement for MUDs. And the first question, would we receive 100% of our funding after the installation is complete? So we make payments we make payments twice. So after the chargers are installed and operational, we pay 85% of the grant award. And then after the 3 years and any usage requirement that's required is met, then we would release the final payment. For projects that are MUDs in AB 617 communities, we do ask for estimated usage. There is no usage requirement. So we will look at what your estimated usage is.
Another question we received is the $1 million minimum a per site minimum, or is that per applicant / organization across a portfolio of sites? So it's a $1 million minimum for the entire application, and it can be spread across multiple facilities to meet that $1 million minimum. Another question we received is this program available for school buses or commercial and transit vehicles? So the charge program is only supporting chargers for light-duty electric vehicles with a gross vehicle weight rating of 8,000 pounds or lighter. However, the Air District does have other grant programs, such as the Carl Moyer program, that can fund school buses and other commercial transit vehicles. So please feel free to reach out to us and we can connect you to the appropriate department.
The next question is, are affordable housing MUD applications held to the same usage standards at the end of the 3-year period as other projects? If an affordable housing applicant does not meet the usage requirement, do they need to return a percentage of the funding? So the quick answer is that MUD applications in AB 617 communities are not held to the same standards as other MUD projects. If so what we're going to ask for when you apply, if you are in an MUD in the AB 617 community, we are going to ask you for your estimated usage, and projects are going to be ranked based on their estimated usage. That's going to be a factor in the scoring criteria. And if the usage is not met, so the estimated usage that you project is not met, we may either give you additional time to meet the usage requirement, or you may have to return a portion of the funding, but it's not our intent. We'll try to work with you to see if we can avoid that. If we can, that's it's not something that we want to try to do. So we want to work with you directly to see if we can resolve any of those issues.
Another question we received is, do you already need to own electric vehicles or already have electric vehicles in order to qualify? So not necessarily. If you are applying for funding for EV chargers and in hopes of incentivizing people to use them and hopefully transition to electric vehicles, that would be great. We do ask for your expected usage of the chargers when you apply, and just note that for projects that are approved for funding and we enter into contracts with, there may be required usage throughout the project depending on the project type. So just somehow ensuring that you're going to meet that requirement is important.
The next question is, can we aggregate separate projects to equal $1 million? The answer is yes, you can aggregate and collect different projects from different facilities and combine it into one application. The next question is, what is the benefit of applying through a partner versus separately? It really depends on the type of facility. If you are a MUD and you apply separately, you can be held to the $10,000 minimum grant award, versus if you don't reach that amount, you can apply with a partner, and the funds can be aggregated to meet the $1 million minimum. The other benefit could be that the contract that we sign is with the if you're using a vendor, it would be the contract with the vendor, and so they would be subject to the reporting requirements and the terms and conditions of the program.
Another question we received is, a slide said that the chargers must be grid tied. I spoke with Air District staff and told that that was not the case. The Beam EV ARC is off grid and with integrated solar and I was told that is illegible. So generally speaking, the charging stations should be installed at a stationary location and connected to the electric grid. However, mobile charging stations will be considered on a case-by-case basis. Another question we received is, do workplace facilities need to be publicly accessible? That is not necessarily required. Again, that will be up to the air district's discretion on a case-by-case review. Another question we received is, will you publish an updated list of the project beneficiaries? So yes, we can work on that and post it on our website soon.
The next question is, are charging companies still able to be added to the interested partners list? The answer is yes. Please send an email to Danny Fung and share your information, and we will add you to the interested partners list. The next question is, you mentioned that the 1 million minimum can be spread over different sites. Does the site owner have to be the same company or person, or can the different sites be owned by different people, companies, and aggregate towards the $1 million in funding? So the different sites do not need to be owned by the same company or people. When you apply, you can specify as many sites as you want, but keep in mind that for each separate site that has a different owner, you are going to need to submit documentation that you have authority to apply for funding on their behalf. The next question is, what are the reporting requirements for the charging stations? Generally, we are asking for usage, uptime, any issues or problems with the chargers. For a full list of what's required in the reports, you can take a look at the sample contract on our website. Under the report section, it lists all the requirements that are asked for. So.
Okay, we are almost at time. So if we did not get to your questions today, we will be responding to each one and publishing the response to the website. Some of these questions are just a bit more detailed, and it'll require that we work it out as a team, and we can publish the responses at a later time. So thank you everyone for joining today. Again, we're posting the questions and responses to everything online. If you have an urgent question, you can email us. So thank you for joining today's webinar and enjoy the rest of your day.